Hi, I'm Scott. Let's explore Explain Everything Whiteboard. It went through a big update in the February of 2018, and I decided that I would just walk through the entire app so you can see what it can do and some of the features that you might not know about. So that means this video is going to be pretty long. So just use the description part and you can find links to different parts of the video so you don't have to watch the whole thing. Or you can watch the whole thing if that is how you would like to walk through the entire app. So just use pause, back up. If you need to hear things again, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, let's get started. So when you open up Explain Everything, what you first see is a new home screen. And with that, you'll see kind of the top where you can start a new project with the plus sign. Join, that would be if you are joining a collaborative account. That's different than the Explain Everything Whiteboard, which used to be Explain Everything Classic features. Those are different, as well as where you could share stuff. Then you can see kind of where recent projects are. With the recent projects, right, they just kind of all line up. As you can see, some of them I was just kind of practicing and trying some things, and they're entitled, and I can title them later, and that's okay. I will do that. Next is Learn. As you can see, there's this new Learn feature where if you click on them, they kind of have some really nice looking kind of graphics to show you and just little pinches of information. Really the opposite of this video, what you can do. And so do explore those. You could go through. So that's the new home screen. Next, if you go to the library, this is kind of what you used to just see. And it has all of your videos as well as the recovered ones right there. You could go ahead and access those there. Learn is kind of has those quick tips that like we just saw, right? But also what it has is posts from their blog, and so there's kind of a lot of real cool features there, a lot of places to learn. A lot of good stuff there, as well as their help section. Like you can see, pulls up this document, which has really helped me make this video. And it's a really helpful document. It explains exactly what things do, as well as the Explain Everything Academy, which is kind of a MOOC that you could go through. Let me take that off reading mode. There we go. You can sign up for. It's free, and you can go through and kind of learn everything that way as well. All right, and then there's other links, website, and that sort of thing. And then search is what you would think. Search, it would search your text. It does not search your handwriting. So that is the home screen. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to get started by hitting the plus sign, right? The purple plus sign. All right, now there's a kind of a difference here. One, now that we're getting started, we could import resources or projects that are already out there, right? So, for example, I could say import from cloud, and I already have a project, say, in Box. And I'm going to click here, and I already have an Explain Everything project, so I could open that up. But as you can see here, I also can open up PDFs and bring them straight in and just start with them there. I could bring in PowerPoint or Keynote slideshows. I could bring all those in when I'm starting, but I'm not going to do that right now. So I just hit cancel. I'll go back. So I'm going to hit the plus sign again. I could choose portrait or landscape mode, right? Landscape mode is kind of how our eyes are oriented and how computers are oriented. So I usually try to stick with that unless you have a very specific purpose to do that. Then what I really like here is now you have the ability to choose other, see there's dots, kind of a chalkboard feel, off-white, as well as custom templates you can create, as well as just choose random colors. So it doesn't have to be one of these 8 that are here, as well as graph paper, right? So those are all kind of important changes that you can make. So, but right now we're going to start just with blank. So I'm going to hit the plus sign there. All right, cool. Now this is our screen, and so I'm going to just start with walking us through this entire thing. So, in generalities. And then as we go, I'll every single icon and button I will break down and show you what it can do and maybe even give some possibilities on how it could be used. So first I'm going to start, as you can see kind of over here, and now I had it on pen mode though. I'm going to go back there. I'm going to go to the hand tool first, and then this will help me kind of show you. So here, right, this is the toolbar. This is a great where you're going to access all of your tools and user interface that way. Next is zoom, so you could kind of zoom your screen. It's an infinite canvas, so you can kind of go in and out with your hand. So that can be handy. Here's where you would record, and then a mic button. This will get bigger once you do record. It gives you more options. It limits the options that are there when it hasn't been recorded yet. So here's the slide sorter, and to create more slides, that's down here. Up at the top would be where you would change the project name, as well as to kind of quick save it. And then over here is where you would share, hence where it says share, as well as the ellipses, right? The three dots kind of will take you into settings. You can minimize everything. And then over here, right, where it says projects, that just takes you back to the home screen. Or if you want to start a new project, you would want to start there. All right, cool. All right, let me get rid of that. Perfect. All right, moving on. We're going to start with the most basic aspect, which is the pen tool. I don't know if that's actually the most basic, but that's where we're going to start. So I have my pencil here. I'm using this on an iPad Pro, and so I am using the Apple Pencil. I feel like it works really well that way, but you could also just use your finger on another iPad, an iPad Air or so. So I'm going to start with the pen tool, and to do that, and I'll just use my finger first, right, I'm going to choose this pen tool. So let's look at some of the features of that, right? And I can push things with my finger or the Apple Pencil. It doesn't matter either way. So the first, if I see just the dot, I'm going to click that, right? And so it brings up a way to see how thick I want to actually write and draw. So if I click here, right, I got that. If I click down here, right, I click that. So you kind of have to choose kind of what you're looking for. All right, so I don't want any of those, so I'm going to undo, which I'll get more into the undo later. And let's go to there for now. And go there now. All right, next down, I click that. It gives me some options, right? So it gives me this marker or pen tool, right, there. Then it also gives me a pencil tool. So if you're looking for kind of a different look, right, or a different thing, you could use that, different darkness, right? So whether it be 2B, HB, whatever, 6B. And so if you write that, right, now I can still make that bigger and still use, right, and so there, shading, right, that sort of thing. You could do that. All right. Now, the next thing that is there is a ruler. So I can click the ruler. Right, as you can see, it lets me go from both pencil and pen from the ruler. I'm going to just go back to the pen for now on the ruler. All right, so with the ruler, what it does is it's there until you untoggle it, right? So I could actually leave this screen and just use my pencil, and I could use that to make a straight edge. I have to go a little bit above. There we go. There, I made my straight edge. What's also nice is you can use two fingers, and you can turn it. And as you can see, it kind of gives you the angle, right? So I'm going to go at a 45-degree angle. And actually, it snapped at a 45-degree angle. That could be very helpful. Again, I missed it. I'm going to go a little bit above. There we go. And then that would be where that is. Okay. So with that, right, I'm using my ruler. I could use it. I could make some... There we go, right. So it looks like I'm starting to do some geometry. Should I just finish it off, right? And even with the ruler out, I can still kind of do this sort of thing, right? Even with the ruler out. Now, if I want to get rid of the ruler, I'm just going to click back on where that pen tool is and hit the ruler, and then it disappears. All right. So that is kind of the most basic part of of this, of that thing. The next thing here, that is a fill tool. All right. And with that, though, before I get into that, let's actually talk about the colors. So as you can see, I've just used black so far. So I can click, though, on any of these colors and change. So now I can do red. And I can say, well, I know this was 45 degrees. Right? So I could do red, blue, and so on. All right. Now, but if I click, if I'm on a color and then I click it again, that brings up the option to change the colors. So I have these kind of standard 8 colors in the middle. Then it kind of went away since I didn't do anything with it. All right, so I have these right in the middle. I also have the opacity, right? How transparent I want the drawing to be. Maybe I want it to be a little bit kind of, I want to see what I'm drawing on top of underneath it, right? So that might be a good reason to kind of change the transparency or the opacity. Then here is where I can make custom colors. And what I do is hit the plus sign. And then I could actually use anything on this circle, right? I could do anything on that circle and make that a custom color. Now I also can make it darker. So I could go ahead and do, I'm just using my finger there. All right. I can go to this mode as well, right? And I could actually put in the hex, the RGB colors. So if you have an exact color brand or that you want to be using or to support a certain team or whatever, you could do that. For example, let's say I want to support an ad, use exact scarlet. And so I'm going to say BB and then 0000. And then that'll bring up the exact color that I would be looking for right there. All right. Now, what you also will notice is that there's the stroke and then there's also the fill. The fill would be what would be inside of it when you decide to fill up the shape, okay? And this happens with all of the different tools. They kind of have a stroke or border and then fill. So here with fill, I can do the same thing. I could also use this eyedropper. This eyedropper would be a great way I could look around kind of the screen and find a color. And so there, obviously, I only have a couple colors so far. But one nice thing that you could do is you could actually bring in an image maybe, and we'll talk about how to do that later. And you could actually eyedot from there. And we'll do that later so I could show you what that looks like. And that way you can kind of complement the image or a part of the image and have that together in that sense. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say done there. All right, cool. So now what I could do, though, is that when I make a shape, I could then hit this little fill tool. And what that will do is then fill in your shape. And you could do that with all sorts of shapes, right? So you could, I could even go back to, say, black, and I could choose to fill it with pink. Perfect. I like it. All right. And then what I can do is make any sort of odd shape. Don't know what that is, but that's okay. But then I'm going to fill it in, and it fills in that way. All right. So that's the fill tool. The last tool that is there within the pen tool, and why don't we just go on to a new, and I've been recording apparently, which is fine. We're going to go and try to make another shape. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. All right, and then I'm going to add, I'm going to make this a 3-dimensional box. There we go. Cool. All right, now, as the last thing is a check mark. And the check mark kind of, what it says is it completes the shape and brings all those pieces lines you drew and kind of makes them one. So now when I go back to my hand tool, which is what we're going to do, I could actually move that around as one shape. I can use 2 fingers to zoom it in and out, and that's what I'm doing. I'm just using 2 fingers and kind of zooming in and out just like that. So again, one finger, move it around, two fingers, kind of zoom, twist, bringing it out. Now, as you can see, I have you probably actually can't see it. I have a red line. It's helping me. There's a few features with the hand tool. So let's click on those. So if you look at the hand tool on the left side, there's something called ellipses there, right? And so that kind of tells you if you tap it again, you're going to have more options. So I'm going to tap it again, and it brings up these options, right? So let me tell you what each of these things do. The snap to objects, right? What those do is they help you essentially align images with the center of something. Or what it does is it helps you put them on the edge of something. So it kind of brings up these red lines and helps you kind of bring them in and snap it there. So you don't have to use that. You can. It's something I like as well. The next thing is, if I bring it up again, is touch and hold. And touch and hold just means you can access the inspector by just touching and wait for it, hold, right? And so that it came up. And we're going to get into the inspector later. I just want you to see that there's these things. So if you don't want that, if you keep accidentally doing it, you can turn it off super easily as well. All right. So let's take a look at the next option. And that's drag and drop. And drag and drop allows you to insert files from other apps using the drag and drop multitasking function that's in the operating system, in the iOS operating system. I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. And then the last one is zoom and pan. So what zoom and pan does would essentially allow you to, when you're not on a shape, basically zoom in and out. It could be faster. It could also kind of get in the way. So for example, with it on, I could zoom in and out of the entire thing, and I'm not clicking on the shape, right? This is just a zoom. But then if I turn it off, see how I'm off the shape and it's not doing that? It's just a way to kind of zoom in and out in a kind of a fast way. I actually really like it, so I'm going to leave that on. All right, so that is the hand tool, right? So say I want to let's kind of create a new one there. All right, so let's say we're going to go back to, actually, yeah, let's go back here. All right, so here I have, I'm going to kind of get rid of some stuff for now. I'll explain these tools later. All right, so, but I want to focus on what we've known so far, which is the hand tool and the pen tool, right? So I have this, I'm starting, right? And so say I want my students to do a proof and then talk about it, which is why Explain Everything is great, because you can talk about what you're doing. So I'm going to use my finger, just one finger. I'm going to just move it over. And actually, I think it's a little big, so I'm going to use two fingers and pinch in. All right. I want to have that right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a T-chart. But what I want to have is a ruler to make sure my lines are straight. And so I'm going to use my pen right above the ruler, right? Because if I just touch the ruler, it'll just move the ruler. Perfect. All right. Now I'm going to use two fingers and twist this ruler. All right. And then line that up where I want to be. Again, I'm going to be just off of the ruler, not on the ruler, because if I'm on the ruler, I'm trying to use the ruler. All right. Now I'm going to go back to the pen, get rid of the ruler. All right. So now I could be doing some sort of a proof, right? So I can start my T-chart. I could, helps if you don't hit the home button. All right. So I'm going to say given. Right, and then so and so. I'm not going to do a proof here. But this could be one example. And then what you could do is you could have students then record their thoughts and kind of talk through the entire process. And they can have both their image that they drew as well as their proofs on the screen. So that's one example we could use. But what we're going to do now, though, is we're going to actually go and go to the next tool, which is the insert tool. Because there's a lot of things that you can insert. And so we're going to go right over here and use the insert tool. But I'm going to give us a blank canvas. All right. So with that, this plus sign, right? This is where I can insert all my things. And if you see at the top, insert new. So I could say insert new picture, right? And it pulls up this right there. There are my notes. I could flip it just like it's a camera, right? It's a camera app. So here I am on my iPad. I could choose to insert a picture of me that way with whatever I'm doing, right? And I actually have it in the settings so it flips it. And so that's what I did there. And so I could do that. I'm going to say cancel for now. The other thing, I'm going to put this back down, right? I could do is I could add new videos, browser, which is really cool. But I'll go to that next. Yeah, I'll do browser next. So it's a web browser. And so there are multiple reasons why you might want to use this browser, right? You might want to have students annotate and explain and talk about a website, especially because it is something that we do so much of as a society. We're on so many websites. So you could maybe have students talk about why this is a good resource or why it's not a good resource for either research or just life, right? And so, but let me show you how it works. So what we'll do is I'll just go to www.osu.edu, right? And so they often say that one of the hardest things to do is to type when people are watching. And I was successful on my first try. So you think. All right, so here is the web browser, right? As you can see, it's moving, it's active. It's not a screenshot, all right, of that. So what I can do then is I could interact with it. But so here's what I'll do first. So I'm going to click off of it. So you see how I clicked off of the screen. And then what I can actually do is I can move it around because maybe I don't want to take up the entire screen this whole time, right? You can change the size. So now when I click off, as you can see, it went to the hand tool. So I could then move this around wherever I want, right? And I could take notes on, I'll say it's a clean look. Nice use of scarlet, right? And so I can kind of give these critiques, right, of a website as I'm going, right? But the website actually, though, can be interacted with. So if I click on it, I could actually go. So I'm going to click on the top part first. And you see how it kind of brought a blue frame around it. Now I can interact with it. So I could actually go and say, all right, future students. And I can really interact with this website. Or I could scroll. So again, it is not just a screenshot. You could really interact with this website. So as I'm making a video, I can interact with this website and talk about maybe the UI, the user interface. I could talk about the resources. I could talk about how to find and maybe do something in a process you're trying to teach fellow students or fellow teachers or your teacher or whatever it is. You could do that. What's also nice about it, though, is I could actually annotate on top of it. So I'm going to use this color. Let's go back to the hand tool first. So I'm going to click back on it, right? It has the blue frame, so now I can interact with the website. So here, I want to just talk about maybe this part. So I'm going to go to the pen tool, right? And I can actually annotate on top of things, right? So here is all of campus that way. This is a really cool app. I really enjoy it. That looks like a llama. I don't know how to spell llama, so I'm just going to undo that part. But that is what it would be, right? So I'm annotating on top of it, right? But now if I go back to the hand tool, I click on the screen, right? Blue frame brings it up. It actually kind of stayed on there. So I could kind of go back to where I'm going. Now, what it won't do is if you say go to a different site or if you refresh, which is what I just did, right? It won't stay. But as long as you're on the same URL and you don't refresh, right, that stuff will stay there. Right, and so I could do it again, whatever. So here's Columbus, right? And so you could do that, and again, like I said, pen tool, click on the frame, and you could go in and out of where you want to put it. You can zoom in on certain things. You could kind of go make it real big, real small, and just have a small part of your presentation. So that is adding a browser. I think that's a really kind of cool feature that people don't always know about. So next one, if I go back to the plus sign, equation. All right, are you a math person? fortunately or unfortunately, right? As you can see, you kind of have these tools here. So I can click one, and it gives me boxes that I can use. And I kind of missed that one there. There we go. I'm going to delete that, right? And so you could have that sort of thing here. All right, now let's not do that in green. Let me change my tool to black. There we go. All right, now let's try that again. So here I have my equation. I can choose any of these things, right? Now, what you also might notice here is those carets at the top of some of the buttons, the up caret. And so what you could do, though, is hold, and it kind of gives you more options, okay? Or, for example, here's a bunch of things. I don't know what they are. Which is what I'll probably say about everything. Oh, I know those are all in variable letters. Sorry. But anyways, right? So you can click, and if you see those carets, there's more things you could do, right? So if I'm doing a different type of matrices or a set, I guess is what that would be. There we go. That's something for. All right. So you could kind of add these things. You want to make sure, as you can see, everything I've kind of touched, it's been bringing together. And so we probably don't want that. So here, let me go back. I'm going to undo. All right. So, and when I took everything out, I could actually just click it, right, and put my equation in there. All right. As you can see, you have, in this equation box, you have 3 buttons as well, right? This one, well, just move it to where you want it to be. That's in the top left. On the bottom right, it just changes the size. And then the check mark is, hey, I'm done with that. So again, you can move things around and move them later. So this can be helpful as well if you're giving students an Explain Everything project and file, and you want them to kind of enter it there. It can be kind of, hey, put your equation there, your final answer, as it needs to be written. Could you also handwrite all of these things? Yes. So it's whatever you choose to do, right? So some people like the equation editor, others do not, and that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this stuff for now. All right, and I'll get into how I did that later. But what we're going to do now is talk about some of these other features when we're using the insert tool. So I'm going to go ahead and add a existing image. So what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to actually start with a Bitmoji of myself. Does it look like me? All right. So when you bring in an image, whether it be a new one or if you bring in one that's already there, it takes you to this image editor. What an editor really means, it's more of a kind of a cropper. So if you want to do something really intense to an image, you're going to want to use another app to do that before you bring it in to Explain Everything. So whether you're changing the contrast or the colors and that sort of thing, that is not what this is for, but it can do some really cool features. So I want to show you the different cropping tools that are here, as well as what else is here. But so this first one is a lasso, right? And this is nice to bring in just a part of an image, right? So what I could do is I could go ahead and I'm lassoing around part of this. And bringing that in. All right, and so what I did is I chose this area that I want to essentially leave, and everything that's not in that lasso is going to go away. So on the top right, I'm going to hit apply, and that's where it does. Now, you could do that over and over and over before you get to where you like it done. So I could even do it again if I want to cut more out. Less, you're going to have to hit the undo button. That's not a thing. But you can keep going this way. And again, you could do that over and over and over as you needed. Right. So that is that sort of crop tool. All right, the next thing, and that's the lasso crop tool. The next thing is you can see the 90 degrees. That's going to rotate it. So especially if you bring in an image that is sideways, or maybe you just want it sideways, Now, these things you could also rotate later with 2 fingers and do like a twist thing, but I think this can be really handy to use as well. And I'm actually going to cancel and bring it back as a full image. All right. The next one is a rectangular crop tool. What that does is allows you to crop, as you can probably imagine, as a rectangle. Right? That's what I want. Now, once you make that rectangle either with your pencil or with your finger, right, it brings up these little pointers where you can kind of go and make it exactly what you want after you know it's already there. So I can, maybe I actually just want that. All right, then I can hit apply. Same thing, right? I could do that. Then I could use the lasso tool, or then I could do this crop tool again to just make it a more refined space that I want to bring into my thing. The next thing down is an instant alpha. So essentially, anything you want to make transparent and go away, you would just drag across that color. So with this image, it should be kind of easy because there's white, right? And so what I would do is I'm just going to go whoop. And so see how it kind of already took all that stuff out? And so I could say apply. Now, it's not perfect. As you can see, there's still some places of white. What I sometimes do, and if I see, especially at the bottom, I see some pieces that didn't get it right, I might then just use the rectangular crop tool and just cut those out manually that way too. Now, I could also do that over and over as well, just like I would do the lasso crop tool or the rectangular crop tool. And in fact, I kind of recommend it because sometimes it gets a little easy to kind of take things away. Now, if you're doing an image with a more complex background, like I'll bring one in. Again, me. Right? If I bring this in, does that look like me? Okay. So if I bring that in, if I then do this, right, so it'd be really good for this white part, right? I can take that out. But then see how it can kind of get away from you. And so I'm going to undo, click the undo button. All right, so but let's try it again. So it can get away from you, and if you don't like it, right, you can undo. But if you want to just start small first, right? If say, all right, perfect. So far, so good. I might say apply, and then I might do it again, right? So this is not Photoshop. It doesn't pretend to be Photoshop. So if you're looking to really do something crazy, I would use another app before you bring it in. And you could then bring it in apps with transparency. So, all right. I'm going to cancel. And that is how you bring in an image. Cool. Oh, video. So let's bring in a video. So I'm going to bring an existing video. Here's one of me. All right. So as you can see, I clicked on the video. I have up top here the scrubber. All right. So I can kind of see the parts of the video. I could also just play the video and hear it. All right. Cool. Then I'm going to say use when I'm ready. Now, again, it's with the hand tool. I could choose to make it bigger and smaller, right? Now you're bringing in videos, right, that are local on your device, right? They're already there. So either you made them with your device or you brought them in from another device using AirDrop or email or something like that, or cloud-based storage. All right, but now I'm going to click on it, and it brings up kind of my options, right? So I can play. I can choose to change the volume. Maybe I was speaking really loud. I can change that. I could actually kind of scrub through, as well as I can make it just play over and over and over and loop it, which I'm sure is what everyone would want, right? So
video blog that.
Right, so I can have that, and then it'll just start over.
iMovie.
Right, such a good video I made. All right, so there, that could be a thing if you want it to be. That is a way to bring video in. What would make more sense probably is if you have students maybe document a process or a thing or try to explain maybe it's a slow motion video of a science experiment, and you want them to kind of bring that in and use that. Or maybe what you want to do is you want to do a quick interview of someone, and maybe just you're asking someone how to pronounce their name. Maybe, right? A way to kind of respect someone that way. Bring that in, you can have that there. So that is a way to bring in video. All right, done with that page. I'll do 5 more. Not even joking. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and bring in a file. So I'm going to go ahead first, and I'm going to get rid of these so we can start fresh. All right. Next, if I do that, is I'm going to go to File. And what that, as you can see, you can bring in photos, which you could do otherwise as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to any of these. You can use any of these cloud-based places. You can bring them in. So I have a Box account. Now, as you can see here, what it does is it allows you to bring in a PDF. This is great for annotating, talking through, giving feedback. It could be for our peers or for your students or for, like I said, a peer review and give your feedback that way. So I'm going to click that. As you can see, it gave me the check mark when it kind of loaded. And then in the top right, I'm going to go ahead and say import. Now, what I could also do, before I click import, you can see these little icons, right? Those essentially just give you options of how it's going to view when you're looking through folders. It's whatever you prefer. It's a preference, right? As well as if you want to go how to sort. So, but I am fine with it that way. I'm going to say import. All right, so when you're doing files, you have some different options. And let me help you talk through these. So at the top, you can see that it has the name. So I'm bringing in part of the strategic plan at Ohio State. Then I could actually see the images, and I can click and unclick what I want to bring in. So even if I would have brought in a document that's 50 pages and I only want to do the first 4, I could just click the first 4. Right, and so you could use deselect all, right, especially if it's a bid document, and then that way you could just do a couple few pages. And that's probably what I would do. What I generally like to do is I actually like to first bring things in as separate slides, meaning each of these pages of the PDF will get their own slide, and when you're done with the page, you can move on. So that's one option, and that's what I generally like to do, so I'm going to do that first. So I'm going to hit Add as Separate Slides. All right, so it brought them in here in my timeline. As you can see, it's 2 of 6. I'll get to this later. And so, but let's go to that now, that first slide. All right, so here is that page, right? So as you can see, I'm on the hand tool, so I could use 2 fingers, different hands, same hand, whatever. And I could zoom in, and I could do that sort of thing, right? Which I think is pretty handy, right? And so why don't we, since we're doing it this way, why don't we just go ahead and talk about the highlighter tool, which is right underneath the pen tool. And it has some of the same things, right? I can decide the width as well as colors. And what it automatically does is it automatically makes it a little transparent because it's the highlighter tool, right? And so, for example, if I want to say this means our accessibility, teaching, research, and service are there, that'll automatically bring that up, right? And so, and stewardship must be of the highest order. Okay, so I have that there. So I could also use the pen tool. I don't have to use that tool. I could use this, and I could say go ahead and point. I could change any color. I could underline, right? Now, if I use the hand tool, I could zoom out, and it's still all attached, right? So this is a great way I could kind of annotate, work on, and then I could record and give my audio feedback as well. Maybe if I want to just make sure I clarify, maybe it's a faster work process for you. Or maybe you just want it to be more of a human feel, especially for an online class. Maybe you don't see the student as much. Or if it's a really big class, you don't see that student as much. You're giving that verbal feedback, which could be really handy. So with that, right, you could also be doing, this is a great way using this file feature. You could also bring in, again, PowerPoint slides or Keynote slides, bring those in And you could even do lectures using your slides, doing your audio. You could add video. You could do animation. You could do lots of things with that. But that's how you might bring in those slides if you're bringing them in as PDF or, like I said, PPTX or a Keynote. Let's actually go ahead and I actually want to try to import these files another way just so you can see what it means. So I'm going to say +, file, box. All right, I'm going to click that document again, import. All right, now I said add a separate slide, but here let's see what happens if I insert 2 pages to the current slide. What it does is it puts them right in the middle of the slide I was on, right? And they're actually on top of each other. So I could actually be working from this first slide, right, with the hand tool, all right? And then I can kind of put it to the side. And then I could go and bring the second page right there. So it puts them on top of each other when we do it that way. The next way to do it is if I go to File, click that, and then I'm going to say import. As you see this little switcher on the right, it says distribute pages vertically. And what it does is it makes it feel like you're reading kind of a PDF, and it kind of presents them one after another on top of each other. Again, it just depends on what you want to do in your workflow. So I'm going to say add 2 pages to the current slide. So as you can see, here is the first page that you've already seen. I'm going to zoom in there with my 2 fingers. I'm using the hand tool. All right, cool. And then I'm going to use just 1 finger, and I can scroll up. And look, there's the next page. That might be what you want to do, but that's how you might insert kind of multiple pages. That's what those things mean. All right, cool. All right, let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to get rid of these. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at how to add Clipart. So I'm going to just click on this again. And then there's this Clipart symbol, right? And with that, I could actually click through. On the bottom is this menu, right? So there's custom, there's people, some animals and letters, right? Various foods. And you could add to these later. And actually, we'll get into how to show you how to add your own Clipart. But for now, I just want to show you kind of what's here. So you have all these things as possibilities. So what we'll do actually right now is we'll go ahead and add some sort of nice image here. We'll add a background. So let's add this one. All right. So I just clicked on it, touched it. I'm going to go to the hand tool. And now again, like everything, I can use 2 fingers to make bigger. I could make it take up the whole screen if I want. Nice. Very nice. So I could use that, right, as some sort of a background, or I could use any of those things. It's just easy things to bring in to help tell my story, to explain my thinking. Then, with that, right, so I could also add images from the web. And then what it does is it searches some Creative Commons open Clipart. So you could search something. So I'm going to go ahead and search Ohio. And it brings in different things, right? And so I'm going to just go ahead and click this Ohio flag. I'm going to say done. We'll move it, hand tool, right? And it brings that in as well. So I don't even have to necessarily go anywhere else to get some of this stuff, right? So I want to use images that I own and I'm able to use, and as well as images like this that I'm allowed to use. And this is built in, which is really nice. So for example, let's go ahead and put the flag. It's just like any other image, right? I'm using 2 fingers, moving it, shrinking it. Just go ahead and put that in the corner there. There's the Ohio flag. The greatest flag in the country, might I dare say. Anyways, let me talk about the next thing, right? So another thing, as you can see, as we add more things, is we can add existing audio. With existing audio, what I could do is I could go ahead and say search for something I have. Now it has to be actually on, I'll bring my keyboard up. It actually has to be on your iPad. It can't be something that's in the cloud. So let's see. Ooh, that's a good one. All right. So what happens is you bring it in. You can move it and hit play. Right, and so it looks a lot like the video, right? How you can loop it, you can have it do whatever you want. So you can change the volume if it's too loud. There we go. That's better. So there it is what that would look like for playing that existing audio. And I don't want to break any copyright or anything for playing some of Tom Petty stuff. But great American artist. All right. I assume he's American, actually. I don't know that for sure. But either way, he's a great artist. So that would be how you add existing audio as well. And later I'll show you how you might be able to add audio and then also kind of move it somewhere else. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to do a video overlay. And what that essentially does is it allows you to add a resource inside of Explain Everything that the user of the project can use, as well as if you're doing a presentation that isn't necessarily part of the presentation. It won't be recorded when you record the video and audio. It won't be recorded as part of that. It can't be, right? It's not, you don't own the content, so it won't be. So for an example, what I might do is I might bring in a URL. And so let me go ahead and open up YouTube. I'm going to get this. I'm going to say copy link. Right. And so then what I'll do is just go ahead and paste it in and say done. Then here what it does, right, is it has this little video. And I could make it bigger, right, from the bottom right corner. There. I can hit play. And it will play, right? It's a YouTube video.
Glad to have you.
Then, what I could do.
With us on College Game Day, Reese Davis, Desmond Howard, Lee Corso, and Kirk Herbstreit.
All right. I could bring it back smaller, right? But see this, I could hit this image, and what it does is it pops it up in the right there. So I could easily access it anytime. This could be a good way to make a tutorial video about a process or what you want students to do. You can then set up an Explain Everything project and then kind of add that video there so students or other people can quickly access it and kind of say, okay, what's the next step? What do I need to do next? How do I do this? You could put this video in there, although it would probably be much too long. But you could. I'm not stopping you. All right, so now what we'll do is we're talking about the eraser tool. But before we do that, I'm going to bring in an image. We use an existing image. I'm going to go ahead and use this cool shot of a soccer field. I'm just going to bring it in as a whole. All right, I'm going to move it to the side a little bit. Perfect. All right. So this looks like this is soccer. Looks like there's some sort of drills going on. All right. With that, let's try to kind of annotate on top of what these drills are. All right. So it looks like what they're doing is they're trying to kick a ball to this goal. I do see cones there. All right, let's see here. Let's see if we can move that a little bit. All right, and then if I was going to replicate this over on this other side, I would put some more cones here. And then have them shoot over here. Okay, so I'm putting some ink down here just so I can show you the different parts of the eraser tool. So if I click on this eraser tool, just like before, I could choose the width of my eraser. Then I have 3 options. All right, the first one only does the active area, which it now says I don't have an active area, so it won't let me do it. Oh, no, it will. Just kidding, it didn't choose that one. So, for example, if I'm writing, and let me just do that. So I'm just going to write active. If I switch to the eraser, see how it automatically selects that one? I can only erase what I kind of was just doing. It's not going to erase what isn't an active thing that I've been doing. So this could be really handy if you just did something and you just want to erase just that part. The next one is only going to then erase text, or text you've drawn, hand drawing types of things, right? So here, I could erase that, right? I could even erase that as well. I can change the size. I want that a little bit bigger. And okay. The last one not only erases drawings, but it also erases images as well. So that would be the erase drawings and images part. So if I'm going to then erase these, it would also erase part of the field. What might make more sense, right, is maybe if I'm trying to kind of edge something, or because it's going to bring that as well as that sort of thing, right? And so if I'm erasing, it's going to also erase that, which, chances are that's not what I want at that moment. And there's a good news is you can undo, and that's what I just did, right? I undid what I was doing there. So let's talk about the recording tools. All right, and so with the recording tools, right? It's down on the bottom, down here, as you can kind of see. So first thing you want to see is a recording button, right? So if you push that, it then starts recording my voice. What I highly recommend, and I didn't necessarily prepare it. Oh, I have left them over there. But what I highly recommend is that you would actually use kind of headphones with a microphone, because you can get it close to your mouth. What I recommend is like hanging it on your shirt or putting it in your ears. But if you don't know where someone's ears have been, you want to then put it just in your shirt so it's there closer to your mouth. The iPads have different microphones coming from different directions, right? And so the other microphone is made essentially just to pick up voice that's in that close vicinity. So often earbuds or whatever they are, those are best to use with your recording. So I would highly recommend doing that audio-wise. Then you can see here, this is your mute button. So if you're recording something, because what it does when you're recording is you're recording both the video as well as whatever's on the screen, as well as the audio all at once. All right, and so that's important to know. So when I'm doing that, so I'm going to just record a little bit more, and I'm going to write again. Looks like a practice. Actually, I think I want to move this field over. Perfect. I'm going to then go ahead and change my color, and it looks like they're doing some sort of drill. All right. So I'm going to hit pause, and so that means I'm not recording right now. But what I'll do, right, is if I go and I click this caret, it will basically show me what I've done. Now, since I've been muted for this last part, right, let me show you. So here's what a waveform was. This is when I was recording and it wasn't muted. Then it shows me I was just doing different writings, and you can see as I scroll across, right, with this little red line, that's your playhead, right? So that's where it's showing you what you're doing. That shows me my movements, shows me where I'm writing, even every specific stroke. This is like when I was talking at the beginning, right? And so I'm going to unmute that just to make sure I don't in the future. All right, and so that's important to know. What you also see, like I kind of was explaining, is that there's 2 timelines. The bottom timeline is your audio timeline. The top one is your movements and writings and all of those things. On this right-hand side, you can see these locks. Those allow you to lock down either the audio or the video so it can't be messed with. And there's reasons you'd want to do that. So, for example, I click it, and that means if I re-record something, my audio will stay exactly as it was. Or I could lock the top, and the movements would stay exactly as it was. So maybe I want to kind of re-narrate what I was talking about or what I was doing. I could do that by locking down the video part, but not the audio part. Especially if you have a script or something, what I would recommend doing if you have a script and then you want to do movements to kind of go with it. You might, for example, want to essentially just do the audio first. That way you make sure you get it as you want it. Then you would lock it down. And then you would just do the movements as you press play and record, as you press record. And then what you can do, and I'll show you. So I press record and it kind of gives me these options, okay? And so I want to explain what those mean. Overwrite means that it basically will just redo everything that you've done. You have to kind of redo if it's not locked down. So for example, I'm already locked down my audio, so that means I won't be redoing my audio. I will be redoing everything else. Mix will actually just make another layer so it would keep what I've already done, but then I'm adding more to it. This could be really good if I'm trying to show some sort of animation and I want to have multiple moving aspects, and I could kind of just keep redoing mixes and add. Or if you want to sing row, 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 row your boat to shore, this would be a great way to do it. But you just need to make sure you unlock your audio when you do that, and you can kind of do working around. I doubt many people will take me up on that, but that's okay. But what I'm going to do now is overwrite. So now what it's doing
my voice.
Is allowing me to kind of do these things that I was doing before. So actually, we're going to talk about this practice. Talking about practice.
What I highly recommend
we're doing drills.
That you would actually use kind of
and
headphones.
they're going to kick goals.
Because you can get it close to your mouth.
Going
What I recommend
this way.
is like hanging it on
Later
your
on,
shirt
I'll have
or
my
putting it in your
striker
ears,
up here.
If you don't
And
know
I'll
where
have a
someone's ears have
defensive
been, you
MIDI
want to
here, right? So I'm going through, I'm adding all these wings. All this.
The iPads have different microphones coming from different directions,
right?
right?
And so
the
then I have my central
microphone is made essentially just to pick up voice that's in that close vicinity. So often,
right back and my left back. All right, so
are,
all these things I'm doing, right? When I go back, it's only seeing my words. It isn't doing what I said over there that time, right? And so I locked down the audio, but then I had new writing on top. All right. And as you can see, if I go past, remember how I had a lot of other stuff before? It undid all that because it went on top of it. So that's good to know. All right, so that is recording and overwrite and mix. But let's kind of break down the timeline a little bit more. And what I want to do actually from here, and actually, I want to do a movement just so you could
whatever
see.
they are. Those are.
I want to hit mix, see how it has the plus sign. That shows you're mixing. So maybe what I want to do is I want to bring an image of myself in. Cool. Right, and that's going to be part of this, right? And so, okay. So with that, let's kind of look at the timeline. The timeline actually is really powerful. It can do a lot that I think a lot of people don't fully know. And so there, right? It shows me my movements. Okay. I'm going to unlock first. Okay. So with this playhead, right, there's a few things that I could do. If I long hold on any of these pieces, for example, on this audio, I just put my finger on it and kind of long hold. It gives me these options, right? Delete, start selection, and so on. But let's talk about each of these. Delete. It means it will delete that entire piece as it's broken up. All right, I'm going to skip start selection for now, but split. Split would be like I'm taking like scissors or a razor and I'm actually just cutting that piece in half. This can be really handy, and I'm going to do that. So this can be really handy, especially if I want to remove a portion of a thing that I said. I was either inaccurate or I shouldn't have said it or whatever. It wasn't clear. So as you can see, if I move the playhead, see how it has the little notches in the line there? It shows me where I made the split. And so let's say I also then want to do it here. So I'm going to long hold and say split. And then what I could do is when I long hold that piece, see how it only brought in that little piece? I could then say delete. All right, it makes a gap. But that's okay. So, but just know it does that. So what I can do though, if I say, if I didn't want that gap, right, I could actually do the start selection thing. I could say start selection. And then I just use my finger and I select more. And it actually gives me delete, which I could just make another bigger gap, or I can say delete and compact, which will then smash it back together. So let's do delete and compact, and there it brings it together like no one would know the difference. But you want to make sure you listen to what you're actually saying just to make sure it makes sense. But that's a couple features. So I'm going to long hold again, show you more. Fade in audio, right? That would just at the beginning of each of that part that you said I'm going to fade in audio for. What it basically does is if you're kind of bringing microphones in and out, it makes sure that there's not kind of pops. Then I can remove the fade in if I didn't like what it did to my audio. So just listen, see what it sounds like. Delete clips from there on out, right? So maybe it's like, all right, I like where I'm at right there, and I like what I've done, but I just kind of want to start over fresh from there. That's when you delete clips from audio. It's a good thing to do is to kind of preview as you go, especially if you're going on kind of a long soliloquy and you're talking for a while. You're going to just make sure you preview it and check it out often. But then you might say delete clips from there on out. But I'm not going to do that there. So let's do it over here, though. All right, say, yeah. Which actually, no, I don't want to do that yet. But that is what you can do because I want to show you this. All right, what I could also do, though, is, for example, let's just say I didn't want to actually put anything about the striker. All right, that was a bad choice. All right, so what I can do is I can hold that part, right? And because it's just writing, I can say delete. And then what it does is it acts like I never even wrote that thing. So you could do this sort of thing both with the bottom timeline and the audio and the top as well. What I also really like, let's see, I can hold that there. Just delete that I ever added that image. Or I can delete that I even moved that image. But I'm not going to do that yet because I want to show you. Because what I'll do, I'm going to start selection. Here. Something that I could show you that's kind of cool here is I could smooth. So basically what it does is it makes it so it's not as it's just a more smooth kind of, if I bring it down now, I'm going super slow motion. But essentially what it does is it can make any movements you're doing and kind of just make it not as kind of uneven and wobbly. It kind of smooths it out. And you can do it over and over and over. As well until you make sure you like it right. So I'm going to say smooth, right? Try to just smooth it out as possible, right? But let's say, no, I don't really want that image there, so I'm going to actually just say delete. And then it took the movement away, right, with what it did. All right, I'm going to start a selection again. So start selection. Cool. All right, now let's look at these other things you can do. So we saw delete, and compact, smooth. Now speed up. So maybe that's something I realized I didn't want to spend that much time writing and undoing. So what I could do is say speed up, and I can choose kind of how fast it goes. Now it's all still going to be on the timeline. Just so let's say I went it 4 times. So what it does is it shows you that it's doing, and if you look at the clock on the bottom, it shows you that it's no longer is consistent every second, right? It's showing you those kind of frames that way. So when I play back, though, it'll still play.
Earbuds,
right? So you could use that. That's a cool feature. I like that. I'm going to try this again. Start selection. I can go backwards on start selection too. That's cool. Or float your boat. All right. I could also export it as video, so I could just quickly export to my photo timeline that small piece, that video, okay, and of both the audio and the movements and screen, as well as a GIF. I could also do that. And what happens is if I click it, any of them, right, I can send them to files or to photos. I would probably send things to photos first, and then you could send it from there on out, whether it be through email or through your learning management system such as Canvas or from AirDrop or whatever it is. That's what I would do, or save it to the Files app. So what it does is it goes through and exports, and then you just choose a place for it. So this is the timeline, right? So there's a lot that you can do with this timeline, and let's see, I could choose different things I'm doing there. So there's a lot you can do on this timeline that I think can really improve what you're doing with Explain Everything. Just check it out, see what you can do there. All right. Let's go ahead and show you another feature. Let's go back to this box that I created a long time ago. All right. So that leads us to our next tool. That's called the Fill tool. All right. I don't think I probably have to explain too much of what this does, but as you can see, it's the same color stuff, different opacities, right? And so let's say I want to make this pink. So what I would do is just touch that box and image, and it makes it pink, right? And so maybe what I want to do is make it actually a little bit less that way, and then I might do the outside that way. Right, and so you can kind of choose how you want to do that. Now, what it all is now, when I go to the hand tool, it's now, it looks like one image. It's grouped together. It's grouped together. So look, I had some white in there, some text I brought in from earlier. So there, that is that. All right, Fill tool, got it. Oh, I didn't cut it. All right, you can actually do this with images as well. Let's try it. Let's bring in this little image. So I could actually try to fill in that, which looks like a cool Euro court. So you can do it with image as well. It doesn't have to just be with hand-drawn shapes. What does happen is if you see you can't change the background color that way, you would have to go into your slide sorter and then pick your colors this way. That's how you would change your background. I'm going to leave it as white for now. Let's go ahead and move that way. Let's see. Another way, if you want to change, because with the background there, what you have to do is do all or nothing. What you could also do is actually put just a giant shape of something. And then make it bigger than your part. And then what you could do with the inspector tool, which we'll get into a little later, is send it to the back. And then you can have a background of just that slide as that shape as well. So that is the Fill tool. All right, let's play with the Shape tool. Let's start fresh. The Shape tool is this next one. So we have a few different options. You can see these two parallel lines. What that actually just does, and it's been on other shapes, it actually just closes that little box. But if I click the next one down, as you can see, there's the three dots, the ellipses, and that gives you kind of the options. So it's showing you I could do some sort of a couple different shapes. I got just rectangular, this is soft rounded edges, circle, lines, arrows, right, and stars. So let's just add a box here. Right, and that's what it looks at. Now, here's some other cool things that you can see there is there's also this, which is a freehand shape tool, which so essentially you freehand draw it in, and then if it matches a shape, it'll just essentially correct it. So, for example, it changed that into that. Let's try that again. Okay, so that's one way to use it. I generally either do one or the other. I usually freehand or I just use the shape tool, but that is a possibility. This next thing here allows you to add back shadow. So let's let me just erase some of this stuff for now. Okay, so with the shadow, if I turn that off and I make a shape, see how it doesn't have the little shadow underneath it? So you could choose if you want to use that. It depends on just the look you're going for. Next is the border width. Really small, really big. I see how it's a little bit bigger border there, and I'm going to turn the shadow back on. I like the shadow. All right. And so we have that going on there, as well as your color tool, just like any other color. Any other way you'd be using colors, right? So it's all about the fill and the border. You can change the opacity, right? The transparency. You could do that. Let's make the fill there, the border. All right, so let me show you kind of a cool example of maybe if I was trying to do some sort of a explanation of solid versus gas, right? So here I have two containers that are very similar looking. What I'm going to do using some features that we've already had is I'm going to bring in kind of a blue. Let's do a custom blue. I want it to be like a water. So I'm going to show us some liquid. So I can touch that. There we go. All right. So I'm going to go and just say here we have water here. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the fill tool. And there I have it in there that way. All right. And now that would be a liquid. So, all right. Now this one though is going to be a gas. All right, and let's say I want to use, to represent gas, I'm going to use some sort of a circular shape. And I want them to be a different color. So let's go ahead and do black border, green fill. Cool. And I'm going to take off the shadow. So what I'm going to do, all right, I'm going to add more of those. So see how I'm kind of, what I could do, which I haven't shown you how to do yet, is I could also duplicate it. But for now, I'm just going to use the tools that we're kind of we know how to use, and I'm just making these kind of shapes here. I'm going to do one more. Let's call it gas molecule. I don't like this one though. It looks kind of funny. There we go. But I also got rid of my box, which was not good. So let's actually drag it out. Let me show you I'm in my box. Click it. There we go. All right. So maybe what I'm doing then as a video, and I'm going to long hold that. Actually, mixed mode is what I'm looking for. Okay, so I don't need any audio. I'm just going to have it do a demonstration, right? So I'm going to show, right? And I want to show essentially these bouncing off of things. Right, it's gas. All right, now what I can do is I can go back on my timeline. And now I could do the same thing, but this time I'm going to choose a different one. Right, it's kind of hard digging and zagging, but that's all right. But what I'm starting to show though is now these different molecules doing kind of different things, right? I'm showing what gas is. And now let's do one more, since I have one more that's not moving. Maybe I want them to start there even. All right. Messed up there. It's going to go back there. All right. All right, so now when I watch my video that I quickly and hastily made, let's get rid of our timeline. All right, it's showing me the different, giving a good explanation of liquid versus gas, right, or at least some sort of a model. So that's a good example of using shape tools as well as your timeline and recording video to do that. So, all right, cool. The next thing we will do, let's go ahead and start a new one, is we'll go ahead and use our, we'll go ahead and use our text tool here, right? So as you can see, if I click it again, it gives me options to auto group, to basically bring your letters together and words together to form one box. I recommend doing that. So what I'll do once I select the letter is I'll hit the screen, and then that is what I'm texting. So what you could see probably right now is because the last time I used it with white text. So what I'm going to do on the very left here, first what I would have to do to change it though is I need to select all. But you could do this before. Let's actually just go ahead and start over. So I'm going to hit my color. And then this says stroke and fill. So I'm just going to go ahead and go with this this kind of red that came with Explain Everything. And then the fill I could choose to make it like something else, right? I'm just going to leave it as white for now though. Border. Do I want there to be a border around it? I could also change my fonts. I have fonts that are built for the operating system as well as for just Explain Everything. So I'm going to just keep that one there. As you can see, there's plenty of fonts that you can choose from. I can change the size basically 3 different ways. I can make it smaller by hitting the little A, bigger by hitting the big A, or just hit that and I can have a little kind of wheel type of feel as I'm doing that. And then you have, right, your alignment, all of these things that you're probably familiar with using a text editor. Then I hit the check mark to kind of keep going. All right, so now here I have this. I can move it wherever I want with the hand tool. I could make it bigger and smaller using my 2 fingers, right, as well. And I can put that wherever I want. I can move it as part of my movement and what I'm trying to explain. So what's also really cool, which I really like, is I could actually multitask from, for example, notes and bring in text that way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the dock to do my multitasking. And then I'm going to bring up my notes. So let's bring on, let's see here. Let's bring in my notes. So these are my notes. You're seeing all my notes. All right. Let's bring in all my text tool notes because that would be meta. All right, so I selected them there, and I'm going to long hold and see how it pops out, and then I'm just going to bring it here. So I didn't even have to type it in. I didn't even have to copy and paste it in. I just brought it in that way. To get rid of this box, I'm going to just see this bar at the top. I'm going to slide down, and then I'm going to slide over from that bar on the side. Right, so I have that. So I can now edit that box. Right, and say, okay, no, I don't want that to be red as well. I want that to be black. As you can see, it didn't change it because, you know what I didn't do? I didn't select the actual text. Select all. Now I can change the color. All right, I can actually say, now I do want there to be a fill, and I want it to be pink. Not that pink. I'm going to make it a little bit, there we go. Cool. Right, and I could use that as a way to use the text as well. That to me is a pretty good feature. All right, cool. Let me bring in an image, and I'll just move these aside. We won't start fresh. We'll just bring in an image here, and we're going to talk about the Cutout Tool next. Let's go ahead and bring in one of these things. This is another image I got from Unsplash. Unsplash is great. images you're able to use. Really cool stuff. It looks really good. But anyways, I digress. Let's now look at the Cutout Tool. So if I look down below where I have the text tool is my Cutout Tool. And so if I click it, I have three options, right? I have my rectangular cutout, my lasso cutout, and my precision cutout. All right, so my rectangular cutout, I'll let you guess what that means, right? So let's just say I am writing about, let's see, look at the sky. So with the cutout tool, right, I could take any portion of it and essentially it duplicates it. Now look, it's all of it, right? It did both text and part of the photo. And so that could be really good, especially if you're trying to duplicate. For example, when I was doing those gas molecules, let me even go back to that. It might have been a good idea to have done that. The only thing I would say about doing it that way, instead of there's also a duplicate thing, is that it takes all of it, and as you can see, it's rectangular as well. So maybe it's not best for that use case, but you could do that, especially if you're using kind of a static image. You could use it that way. So let me bring that there. Okay, so I have that. And I just delete that for now. All right, which we haven't gotten to delete yet. But as you can see, if you click that, that will lead you to then touch things, which allows you to delete them. You can delete more than one thing at once. So you just touch and untouch to not delete them. See how there's only one X even though I have three things deleted? Right. All right. I got ahead of myself, but that's okay. Now let's go back to the cutout tool. And now I have my lasso. So I'm sure you can figure out what that means, right? So with my lasso tool, I can say maybe have this photographer who's getting a picture of him duplicated multiple times. I can do it again. All right, so now I have, for whatever reason, I might do that, right? So I now have 4 photographers being photographed, right? So the cutout tool basically cuts out and duplicates. But again, anything you cut out makes it one kind of piece. It flattens it. And so there are times that it makes sense to do that. There are times that it doesn't. Right. I'll let you kind of play with that and see that. The last one is the precise one, right, which gives you the kind of the X-Acto knife. You can flip, kind of see which direction you're coming from. You can move it around. So, for example, say I really want to get it real tight. So I could then, when I'm ready to, I'm going to hit the little X-Acto blade thing. All right, and then I essentially would then do this. Alright, I could have zoomed in to this as well, which probably what I would do if I was trying to make it real exact. And when I have what I really want exactly, I would then hit the check mark. And now I have number 5. This is definitely a boy band cover in the future. So if you want to use this cover for a boy band, now I didn't get the shadows. Actually, that kind of makes it even a better photo if there's only one shadow. But anyways, that's how we use the cutout tool. I already explained just now how to use the delete tool. Here's another cool tool, the laser pointer. So I clicked it and then I clicked it again, right? And you have different options. You could use kind of like the hand thing. So I could have been doing this the whole time, but I didn't get to it yet. So right here's the shadow. I could do kind of, looks like, vroom, 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 right? This kind of looks like something you might use from a different movie, like Star Wars. Different arrows, if you want to feel kind of like a computer. As well as if you actually wanted to kind of, not like a computer, but still have an arrow, you can do that as well. As well as just different laser pointers. They're fun. Cats don't like them as much, but anyways, I always tell that joke here at this point when I talk about Explain Everything. All right, the inspector tool. All right, let's start fresh. All right, the inspector tool. So let me start with kind of a couple new images we'll bring in and help us just kind of work from as I explain exactly what the inspector tool is. So let's go ahead and do this one. That one looks pretty cool. We'll make that one a little smaller. Put that one up there. Okay. Let's bring another image, also from Unsplash. Unsplash. All right, there we go. So, all right, there's a couple things I'm adding. Okay. I'm actually going to add a couple words here. Let's add some text, actually. And I have notes about these two images. So I'm going to go to the tool there. All right, what did I do there? Oh, I started a new one. All right, here we go. I didn't want to do that. All right. Now I'm going to go back to my notes, right, because I actually have some notes in that same note about these, and it'd be kind of cool to give these great photographers credit. It's not mandatory with Unsplash, but you can. And so here's one. All right, this is the one on the bottom, so I'm going to hold that, right, pops it out, and now it looks like I'm bringing it up. Nope, I have this slide sorter up. It's having some trouble. All right, let's try that again. I don't want to do that. All right, I'm holding it down, bring it in. All right, see how I put it there? It chose the last color I used, right, for text. So I'm just going to bring it over for now. Let's move it. All right, but now I also want to do, let's bring in the other text as well. So I'm going to select, this is the Orion Nebula. Sounds cool. I'm going to put that over there as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to again use the bar. I'm going to swipe down and then over. Okay. So I have these. I have text here. Let's throw some shapes in here as well, just so I could really show you with the inspector tool and all of its magic. So let's do black border, and we'll do like the pink fill. We'll do a little bit of the opacity down. But I actually want it to be a rectangle. And then this next one, we'll have it be a rounded edge rectangle. Cool. All right. Inspector tool. The inspector tool kind of gives you a lot of magic on what you could do with all of these things. And so I want to walk you through that. That's this eye, right? So if I click something, I can move it around. I'm still on the hand tool. Let's go to the inspector tool first, okay? And then what I do is I click something. And I'll see how it has the border there. You could use that to show you what you can do. You can select multiple things at once and interact with multiple things at once. So, for example, I could click both photos. See how they're both there? Now, how do you unclick something? Just click it again, right? And so, another thing that you could do to select things with the inspector tool is you could actually lasso, and it just selects everything in its path. And so, I could, right? So I've brought these things I've selected those things, and I didn't even touch any of them. I just lassoed them all, right? So that's how you get things with your inspector tool. All right. So first, though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unselect everything but this first kind of text that I have, right? So I'm on the inspector tool. The inspector tool bar you can move. I just touch the top, right? And I can just move it wherever I want it. As you can see, it's also a way to delete stuff. So if I hit the trash can, it would just delete what I've selected. It also, though, can share something as well. So share that text or whatever it is. So first with the range, basically what it does is it can help you layer your images so it works, right? So for example, I want to actually first go ahead and I want to add this box with the text. Okay, so that's what I want to do. I want to have this box with the text, right? But basically what it did is it made the text on the bottom, especially, fortunately, I made it a little transparent. So I'm going to click on this box, right? So I click on the box. I'm going to say send it either backwards or send to the back. Back, it just knows nothing's going to be behind it. Backwards might just be one step. So I'm going to just send it to the back, right? And now that I brought my text up front to kind of be there with it, okay? So that's how you use those, bring the front, bring the back. So, for example, if you can see, I have these two images. Right? And see how this bottom one actually is kind of on top? Well, I want actually, though, this other one to be on top. So I'm just going to say bring it to the front, and it cut it on top, right? So that's how you layer things. Now, what's cool, too, with this Arrange tab is you can actually arrange things to kind of come together. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to select both the text in that box, right? So I could say, all right, well, let's actually just align these together, left, to the center, to the right, middle. So see how it kind of, I just centered it both ways together. All right. So now I'm going to go to the edit group. So now with the next tab, edit, I could click two things and I could group them together. Grouping is nice because then that way I can move them and they move together. And now actually what I want to do is I want it to be on top now. So I'm going to select it. And now because they're grouped, they're together. And I'm going to bring it to the front. And now I have kind of something there to help me see what's going on there, right? So that I'm able to kind of give credit to that because of that box I brought to the front. All right, so if I group things bigger as well. Cool. All right, so I'm going to go back to my inspector tool. And see how like it's only allowed me to select the actual box? So if I do that, I could actually just send it to the back. And then I could select that too, right? And I could, well, why don't we do the same thing? Align them perfectly in the box. Cool. I'm going to group. What I could also do then is all these other options, right? Duplicate, which would be probably what I would do with the gas, right? It's just duplicate because then it's what it is it's still text. So I could still edit it, especially if you're just changing things a little bit. That could be a great use of that. But I'm going to go ahead and delete that for now. All right. I have that. Let's go back to my inspector tool. Copy. Copy is if I want to essentially copy something and then paste it on another slide, right? So I'm going to say go ahead and copy, and then I'm going to go back a slide, and I'm going to paste, right? I would duplicate if you're trying to put something on the same slide, and I would do copy and paste if it's on a different slide. Also, what you could do is you can flip things right and left. For example, say I really think this photo, even though I wouldn't be quite giving this person credit, I want to flip it right or up and down. You can do that with anything, shapes, images. So let's go ahead and add another. Let's see here. Right, I'm using some of my techniques right from before. I used the Infinite Alpha apply. Now I'm going to actually crop where it didn't Infinite Alpha. So cool. All right. So I have this here. So what I could do, right, I could select and I could flip myself up and down, right or left, if I want to appear right-handed, left-handed, whatever, right? Those are other options in the inspector. Here are some of the cool ones, right? That I think you want to use carefully, but you might have a good reason you want to use them. One is it's called set an auto rotation. So maybe, for example, if I look at it right, if I'm doing auto rotation, right? So you see this circle on the right here? If what I could do, and I don't need to use my pencil for it, is I could essentially, the harder I swing is the harder then that will then swing. And then if I just, what happens if I just touch, it'll stop. All right, so I'm going to go back to my inspector tool. It's an auto rotation, right? And then if you see down here, it moves where my center is going to be. So, meaning if I put my center down here and I rotate, it's going to go around that way, right? So that, again, I can hit the center there of that right one and it just stops you. But again, I could just go that. Stop. All right, so that could be good for various reasons. So that's the auto spin. The next thing is I can set an image as the background. So when an image is a background, it means even when you zoom in and out, it's going to always just be there in that position. So for example, let's select this one right here and unselect me. I can set it as a background. So what I could do is then if I zoom in and out, because remember I have that built in here. I actually already kind of showed you that. Even when I'm zooming in and out, it leaves what is there. So that is handy. So even if you lock something down, which we'll get to next, it doesn't work quite the same. What the background does is always leaves whatever that image is there is going to stay there no matter how much you zoom in and out. Okay, like as that part of the screen. So the next thing I will show you, let's keep going on the inspector tool. And actually, let's put me right back up there. All right. And I'm going to move this around. It's now in the way, right? So I can move from the top there. Is I can set as clip art. So whatever I'm selected, I can make it as clip art. So now when I go back into here, clip art, where there's that pencil, I could easily put myself there. Bring that up. So, right, it doesn't have to just be an image like that, which that is a good use of that if you want to add like kind of your Bitmoji like that in, as well as other images. I could have actually had it be this whole, all of that as clip art. So then when I add that clip art, well, I guess because it's a background wall. But it could be shapes and things as well. It doesn't have to be just one individual thing. All right, let's go ahead and check out the last thing. Infinite scroll. All right, let me get some stuff out of here first. I got a lot going on. Did I say delete? All right, cool. So I'm going to click back on here. I'm going to not make it background anymore, so I unselected that. But I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to bring that text down there, right? So what I could do, though, with this is something called infinite scroll. This is kind of a newer feature. So what I could do is you can see these things on the top and the bottom is it allows me to kind of set it as a moving something that keeps moving as it goes, okay? So, for example, check this out. So I'm going to go ahead and just, I lightly touch, right? It goes at the speed you're going. So that can create like a background type of thing. And then if I want to keep scrolling, like for whatever I'm doing, I'm going to hit that sign there. So maybe I do want to add myself, right? And I could kind of tell a story of someone who's walking through the woods or, whatever. I mean, there's lots of different reasons you might use that, but that's what you could do there. So that is the infinite scroll. So I'm going to go back to the inspector tool, bring up infinite scroll, and then if I hit that blue dot, it stops it and takes it back to the beginning. As you might have saw, it's also vertically as well. So I could do that as well. So if that's what you're going for, you could do that. Cool. All right, let's look at the inspector tool again, but let's go looking at the lock part. So the lock part will lock something down in place, like I just did earlier, right? So I can say, so with that, right, even if I'm zooming in and out, though, it'll stay there. But what it's saying, essentially, is that it won't be moving in and out. All right. So and it looks like I locked them together. Or I grouped them. All right. So let's go ahead and lock, unlock. Good. And we'll... Good. All right. So what also, though, you could do is lock rotation. So this is really good when you're trying to move things in sort of a video, right? And so if I select myself here, and I say lock rotation, and I'm moving it, and if I use two fingers, I can't spin and move. So meaning that if you know your movement and you don't want to actually rotate, you just want to kind of be a flat something, you could do that. So I could do multiple of these, right? I could also lock scale, meaning I don't want it to also get bigger accidentally. And so you could move it, do that. So I'm using two fingers and it won't do it, right? And so I could lock it which way it goes, right? So horizontal meaning, so if I want him to only do one direction, right? So he can't go sideways, he's only going up and down. So maybe it's like, oh, and up it goes, right? So you could lock that. That could be a good way to help just kind of clean up what you're doing. Do lock vertical. There we go. And rotation. Right now he's only going that way. So that could be really handy as well as snap rotation. Snap rotation means that when you do rotate it, all right. Snap rotation means when you do rotate it, it will go to the nearest 90-degree angle automatically. So, see how it locks there. So, that could be handy as well. It's just a lot of options that you could do. Lastly, and you've seen I've done this, is right down here, right, is the undo and redo. So you can undo and redo as needed. It is a great friend to do that because if you really get into it, you're going to make a lot of mistakes when you are doing it. All right, next. Pan and zoom. So this is kind of a cool feature. Now I've shown you how to do it right with the two fingers from the hand tool. But let's do it straight from the zoom tool on the bottom. So if I click this magnifying glass, right, it says 95% is where we're at now. I can say reset and it'll take me to 100, right? But then what I do, one finger will move me around canvas. So if I want to kind of make it some sort of a linear timeline, I could do this, and I'm just moving around canvas. Two fingers, right, pinches and zooms. Starry night, look at that, cool, right? And so that's two fingers. All of those actions will be recorded when you do it this way. If I was recording this, they would all be recorded and it would all be seen if I'm giving a presentation that way. That leads me to the next one, stealth mode. With stealth mode, what it does is allows me to kind of have, I could zoom in real close and do something that's really precise, or I could zoom out and I could actually have something like this that would be off the screen, not unseen, and I could just bring it in all of a sudden, or bring things in and out, right? So that they would kind of make kind of a puppet show feel, right, or a felt board, if you will. I really like using that. I like having this red frame because it's only whatever's in that red frame is what's going to be seen or recorded for your presentation. So you could have, it's good to maybe even have text. So let's try one that I had text in here. All right, cool. So I'm going to enter this one and I'm going to go to, I'm in stealth mode. All right, now I could use it the same way I've been using everything, right? Maybe what I want to have is that out, and I can bring that in as I want, right? So I can be talking about text, if you're talking about text, I could then also bring that in, right? Look at the sky. And Joshua Tree was not this image, so it wouldn't make sense. But anyways, you could bring things in from different directions. I really like doing that when I'm making videos or I'm making some sort of explanation. Having stuff that I could just easily swipe in on the go. All right, now I've been playing, then reset, as you saw, will take you just back to that frame that you can see. Or the starting frame. Depending on the settings, you can actually change what the frame looks like. So, but I'll get into that when we get to our settings. All right, slide sorter, which is down here. I've been hitting it. I could go over slides, right, with these carrots. I could also use the slide sorter. What I could also do is if I want to change the order, I could hold down and just move. I just long held and move it around. I could duplicate things. So let's say I wanted to duplicate with recording and without recording, right? So do I want that video that I already did? I'm going to say without. So that could be good, especially if you want your students to you want to model something and you want your students to replicate it. You could do that. You could delete slides, multiple at once. This is, like I said, also where you change the background to maybe something different. Say I want it to be this kind of a gray. I could do that. But again, it does it for all of your slides. So just know that. This one would be remove recording. So, for example, let's just say I want to get rid of that recording. Current slide. And then that way it's there. It's an easy way, instead of having to go back and to the timeline, go to the front and say delete from here on. You don't have to do that. You could do it from your slide sorter. The plus sign, which you've probably seen me using, is it essentially will add a new slide right after the slide you were on. So again, you can cut things in and out that way. Now, if I go back to the top bar, just as I kind of go back and wrap up some of these options, right? As I said, the left carrot up here will take you back to the home page, which I didn't necessarily need to do, but I'm going to go back anyways. All right, here where it says Untitled, this is where you would just change the name. So this would be my Explain Everything video that I'm making. And then what I can do is quick save or duplicate it there. So I like to quick save from there. Share is good. So go to export. And so you can choose to share things as video and shares them straight to device or cloud service, whichever you want to do. Document, right? So that would save it as a PDF. Image would be, right, save your image. Like I usually recommend to save it to your photos, right, directly on your device, but you could also do it on save to files. And then also we could save the entire project, right? So you could create something, and then you can upload it to like a learning management system and then have your students download it. And then they can work from what you've already started. So that could be a really handy way to kind of do a lesson using Explain Everything. And the students can say mostly within Explain Everything. That'd be a good reason to use right over here when we talked about the video overlay. You could throw in a link there and how the students would use it from sharing it as a project. Now look at the bottom. See how it says 14 of 14? I'll click that. I could choose which slides I want them to actually export, video, photo, or the whole project, right? So I don't have to have them do all of them. I could just choose, I could say deselect, and I just want these 4 slides, right? And I could then just choose go back. It says 4 of 14 selected, then I send them that way. All right. And then these arrows going right are to minimize the top, give you more space. The ellipses, that will lead me to settings, which is what I'm going to kind of do a very brief overview of what some of these settings can mean. And so, toolbar alignment. That is something that would right-handed or left-handed probably is how you might want to use it. As you can see, it kind of goes, I like that on the left. Control bar, that's that. I actually do like it on the top. As you can see, I was kind of hitting things when I was doing it, but I wanted to leave it as a kind of the default. But I actually like to leave that there at the top. And so we'll do that from here on out. External screen mode, right? So how do you want the people, if you're projected to a monitor or a projector, if you're connected, how do you want them to view? So here, if it's mirrored, they're seeing exactly what you see, all the user interface and everything you have there. Second screen means they only see kind of what you're doing. They don't see all of the grid marks. They don't see the user interface. And so you could do that. I had this on because you were seeing my tapping. Display on-screen taps and gestures. That's especially good if you're giving a tutorial on how to use Explain Everything. You might not want it on if you're just trying to give a presentation or just make an animation and you're not trying to show all the magic. What I think is also good to know that there's some parental controls that you could essentially make it so the password is required and you can put a password in for that web browser when you're doing that. Let's go over to the editing. With the editing, you could choose kind of how you want the shape of your screen. So 3.4 is essentially an iPad. So especially if it's going from iPad to iPad to iPad. If you're going 16:9, it's more like an HD TV or a desktop. So depending on how you want to make your video type, that's what I would use. Offset laser pointer. So I had that on. So essentially when I'm using the laser pointer, it doesn't go exactly where my finger is because I want to be able to see it. It goes a little bit above. On-screen gestures, as it shows you, right? Overlay guides to show this area will be visible when exported and so cropped, right? I'll leave that there as it is. Hide video and audio object controls after a while. You can leave that on or not, whatever you want. Wrist guard, you can bring that on to just help yourself from hitting things. Like I said, I would normally just move mine to the top just to get that out of the way, and I'm usually good. How do you want to handle the drawings, right? We've talked about those things. Do you want to add shadow to all new objects, including your images, not just the shapes? You could add that on if you would like. The next one essentially is a time saver. Do you want to switch to your hand tool after a shape creation, knowing that once you create something, it just switches? When I was making those gas bubbles, I had to keep going back to shape. If I would have had that off, I could have just kept making shapes. So just knowing that that's something there as well. Let's go to export. Resolution, right? So you can choose how good of an image that you're bringing in there. Just know the bigger the resolution and as well as the bigger the quality, the longer it's going to take to essentially export. And so you want to think about that. So maybe you do want it to be as good as possible. So you're going to choose best and choose a high resolution. And then you can do that way. File format is what type of video do you want to go as. The MOV or the MP4 is similar. I would choose MP4. It's more universal for all types of products, not just Apple devices. Do you want to include audio? Now, do you want to include slides that you didn't record anything on? So essentially, if I didn't record something, it's just an image. Do I want that there? And you can choose how long that will be there if you want it there. How you want it. Documents exported. GIFs exported when you do it from the timeline. The recording. How do I want the camera when I'm recording from the app? When I'm recording from the app, what will the resolution be? As well as frames per second. The browser capture frequency is essentially when you're not using the browser actively. How often do you want it to capture that? When you're using it, it automatically captures it because you're clearly using it. But when it's on the side, cycling through something, how often will it capture? And there's obviously more as well here, including automatic smooth zooming, I guess is really what it says. I like that as well. then your integration's right. This is how you set up your cloud storages that are available. Do you want those all there that way? So, here we are. We're done. That was a lot. Feel free to, again, go down and click to kind of find back the places I talked in, as well as feel free to share this with friends and give me feedback, and we can see what we can do. So hopefully you see how powerful this tool is, and I want to tell you, just have a great time exploring and creating and showing your knowledge with Explain Everything Whiteboard.